thousands, in the millions, and we will be. Because it starts right here.
Guilty!
Welcome to a special episode of Naptown People's Radio. I'm your host, Derek Ford, here today with my comrade and producer,
Dakota Fronterhouse.
As always, we're here to guide you through the pressing issues facing the people of Indianapolis from the perspective of the people, not our oppressors. And as organizers involved in these struggles, we're not just reporting the news, we're making it happen. And we make the news not as we wish, to paraphrase Karl Marx. We don't make it under our own selected circumstances, but under the current conditions directly transmitted from the past. That means that in order to make history today, we need a thorough understanding of our past, of the heroic and tragic centuries-long struggle to fight to abolish all forms of exploitation and oppression. To that end, in this episode, we're going to be hearing a speech Dakota Fronterhouse delivered earlier this week to commemorate the 59th anniversary of the founding of the Black Panther Party in October 15th, 1966. Now, many of our listeners are familiar with the Black Panther Party, and of course, they represent an inspiration to revolutionaries worldwide today. They're, of course, least known in the U.S. I've been to China, Brazil, the Koreas, and elsewhere, and they're not only known as an important group, but as one riddled with contradictions imposed from above and generated from within. And in fact, I remember visiting a Korean elementary middle school in Japan and was taken aback by a lesson they were learning about Huey P. Newton. But even on the left in the U.S., the party is usually approached as sort of an activist group, right? Rarely are they taken seriously as an organization with theoretical debates, with strategic and tactical knowledge, errors, and successes from which we have to learn. So in Dakota's speech, he gets into all of these and more. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dakota.
We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. Socialism is the people. You're afraid of yourself. If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and to the excellent speakers before me. The Black Panther Party, as we've come to know it, was formally founded on October 15th, 1966, 59 years ago to the day of this recording. The Panthers are often either romanticized or subjected to disproportionate and often ahistorical scrutiny on the left. Both errors stem from a superficial understanding of the historical and material conditions that birthed the organization, defined its context, and posed the immediate obstacles against why they struggled in their pursuit of achieving all power to the people. In this presentation, I want to take perhaps the outsized role the Panthers play in the left's imagination today as an opening to delve more deeply into the conditions of their formation and their ideological and political contributions to the struggle, all lessons we can draw on today. As working-class students at Merritt College in Oakland, California in the early 1960s, Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale were both deeply entrenched in the theories and the daily reality of the black community. Born in Louisiana in 1942, Newton was the youngest of 7 children who could hold his own in a fight with drug dealers, hustlers, and after learning to read and write on a university stage. While his father, a minister at the Bethel Baptist Church, never encouraged his children to fight, he quote, taught us to play fair, something that only got him so far on each street. Each proved invaluable. Each brought different benefits and consequences, fighting hurt and built friendships. It's how Huey met David Hilliard, who would go on to become a leading theoretician of the party. It hurt, but only temporarily. From the hustlers, he got affirmation of his spontaneous resistance to the laws of white supremacy and capitalism. Huey first supported the Cuban Revolution and Fidel Castro, as well as Paul Robeson, because his high school teachers opposed them. They also imparted in him the confidence to pursue education on his own terms. Nothing was more fundamental than his commitment to teach himself to read and write over the course of 2 years. By then, he realized the hustlers had only false solutions. While the pain from fights went away, Newton said the shame from being illiterate would not. The benefits never left either. He started studying his older brother Melvin's poetry books and then Plato's Republic. Quote, "It was my studying and reading in college, which he started in 1959, that led me to become a socialist." And on to Bobby Seale now. During a college protest against the U.S. blockade against Cuba in 1962, Huey met Bobby Seale. During a discussion afterwards, the younger Huey, who was about 5 years the junior of Bobby, won Bobby over to supporting the Cuban Revolution and the limitations of the mainstream civil rights organizations. Seale came from Texas and a working-class family. He always had a sense of justice and often the fortitude to act on it, even spontaneously. After high school, he drifted until joining into the Air Force before a racist attack ended that stint. Both from working and oppressed classes, they were dissatisfied with the emerging black radical groups at the time because they were generally disconnected from the people and confined themselves to the realms of ideas, of rhetoric. Seale and Huey were organizing in their communities by contrast. On June 16, 1966, then Stokely Carmichael, a black radical activist born in the Caribbean, had graduated from Howard University and was the newly appointed chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or the SNCC, uttered the words "Black Power" to a surprising effect. The speech Carmichael delivered was part of the March Against Fear, initiated by James Meredith and at first opposed by the SNCC. Soon after, as detailed below, circumstances forced the SNCC to join the ranks of the march along with others. As the sun started setting on June 16th, Carmichael and others scouted ahead to begin preparing for the encampment at the Stone Street Elementary Negro School in Greenwood, Mississippi. Despite its name and location, the school was under the control of the local white ruling class who utilized their police force to protect it from peaceful marchers. Because Carmichael didn't hesitate in the face of police, he was arrested. Released hours later, he walked out of a jail to a crowd of about 1,500 people. Walking up to the microphone, Carmichael reaffirmed his defiance against the white cops. The cheers magnified as he called on others to do the same. He stated it was time for Black Power. It's unlikely Carmichael knew that this particular vocalization of Black Power as a rallying cry would almost immediately become a central feature, inspiration, and site of contestation in the black community and black liberation struggle in the U.S., provoke terror in the white power structure, and traverse the globe to guide the struggles of the oppressed for self-determination and socialism worldwide. As it reverberated globally, it would even transcend racial categories, let alone outcast Carmichael's life, well after he took the name Kwame Ture. It wasn't the first time these two words were put together in this order. Richard Wright wrote a book with the title The Previous Decade. As Rhonda Y. Williams writes, Carmichael's SNCC comrade Willie Ricks, quote, had begun testing out the phrase Black Power in the community. On June 5th, James Meredith, credited with desegregating Mushko, Mississippi, was enrolled at Columbia University Law School. He initiated a 220-mile one-man walk through Mississippi to mobilize black voters. Given the notoriously racist extra state and state-sanctioned violence of the state, Meredith asked for but did not receive any federal protections. On the second day of the march, while vigilante Aubrey James Norvell shot Meredith in an assassination attempt that put Meredith in the hospital. The racist attack provoked a counter-reaction with SNCC deciding to join. Even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. joined the march, as Fred Prowledge, noting how the domineering presence of Dr. MLK Jr. was barely audible, as the press covering the recommenced march increasingly listened, quote, to a catchy phrase that was being shouted by SNCC Field Secretary Willie Ricks, Black Power. Both Lewis and Carmichael shared a history of militant struggle in the organization. Under Lewis's leadership, SNCC drafted an incisive and politically powerful speech for the famous March on Washington in 1963. The original draft linked black oppression to capitalist exploitation to demand more than equality under the existing order. It goes as follows. We march today for jobs and freedom, but we have nothing to be proud of, for hundreds and thousands of our brothers are not here. They have no money for their transportation, for they are receiving starvation wages or no wages at all. What is there in this bill to ensure the equality of a maid who earns $5 a week in a home whose income is $100,000 a year? Dissatisfied with the limitations of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, Lewis articulated SNCC's position clearly, saying, "Mr. Kennedy is trying to take the revolution out of the streets, but we must say to the politicians that there won't be a cooling off period." Thus, the typical framing we hear of nonviolent/violent or Malcolm or Martin or even integration or segregation does not capture the essence of the Black liberation struggle during this period. It was in fact the passage of legislature that let loose the full militancy of what we might call the attempt at a second Reconstruction in the U.S. In August 1966, a New York Black Panther Party formed, getting support from Audley Moore and others. However, a debate over boycotting Harlem schools ultimately led to a poisonous factionalism that rendered the group irrelevant. But both Black Panther parties in New York City and Oakland got their symbol from the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, a project of newly elected chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Stokely Carmichael. Huey's legal knowledge served him well as he beat several petty cases with his knowledge. He would even use that knowledge to organize the Black Panther Party for Armed Self-Defense, as it was originally called. They first recruited Bobby Hutton, who was there for the first public display of armed Black power. Huey, Bobby, and Hutton were driving around North Oakland when they started tailing a police car. All three men were armed with weapons and a law book. The guns were clearly visible. They got pulled over in a heated exchange with the officers. People rushed out of their homes to watch three young Black men wield the white man's law in their favor. The cops eventually left, but not without writing Seal a ticket for improperly securing his license plate. After that, people started joining the Panthers. New recruits procured weapons, and they sold Mao's Little Red Book to fundraise for them. For several months, their armed patrols continued and attracted a small but dedicated cohort of recruits. The Panther chapter grew rapidly during 1967 to 68, and its recruits were attracted not so much by their ideology, but by their actions. Specifically, their boldness when confronting the police. Black Panther Party members staged a dramatic demonstration by walking into the California State House with shotguns to bring attention to their 10-point program. They were catapulted into the national spotlight. Over the next 2 years, the Black Panthers developed into a major political organization with thousands of members. Within 3 years, they had 35 chapters across the country, including inside of prisons. At the same time, various other groupings, including the Republic of New Africa, were formed. None were more hunted than the Black Panthers, however, making their relatively short lifespan all the more impressive. While Carmichael, who joined the Panthers for a period of time, never presented a clear articulation of what Black power was, how to get it, and for what purposes to wield it, the Panthers did. In an interview with The Movement, Huey said Black power is really people's power. The Black Panther program, the Panther Power as we call it, will implement this people's power. Black power is giving power to people who have not had the power to determine their destiny. We advocate and we aid any people who are struggling to determine their destiny. This is regardless of color. The Vietnamese people say Vietnam should be able to determine its own destiny. Power to the Vietnamese people. They could give a clear articulation because they had a clear worldview. As David Hilliard wrote, quote, "The ideology of the Black Panther Party is the historical experiences of Black people in America translated through Marxism-Leninism." Later, a statement read, "We are adherents of Soviet democracy." Earlier, I said that the recruits were attracted by their actions, but their actions were ideologically formed. They were above all popular educators. That's what their various survival programs were all about. As Fred Hampton put it, our Breakfast for Children program is feeding a lot of children. We saying something like this, we saying that the theory's cool, but theory with no practice ain't shit. You gotta have both of them. We have a theory about feeding kids free. What do? We put it into practice. That's how people learn. A lot of people don't know how serious this thing is. The Breakfast for Children program is run in a socialistic manner. People came and took our program, saw it in a socialistic fashion, not even knowing it was socialism. The 10-point program. The Panthers were a revolutionary party striving to be a vanguard. What does breakfast programs have to do with that? It was called reformist by many on the left, but again, quoting Hampton, you gotta crawl before you can walk. At the time, there were underground groups, but the Panthers knew that you couldn't go underground without earning the trust of the people. In a polemic against revolutionary action movement, Huey said the same sentiment. Quote, I responded to them by pointing out you must establish your organization above ground so that people can relate to it in a way that will be positive and progressive for them. When you go underground without doing this, you bury yourself so deeply that the people can neither relate to nor contact you. The terrorism of the underground organization will be just that, striking fear into hearts of the very people whose interest the organization claims to be defending because the people cannot relate to them and there is nobody there to interpret their actions. Note the differences between this and mutual aid work. This is the same spirit that drives indie hope packages. This is why we call it direct political aid. It's socialism in practice, people taking care of each other, but without the illusion that charity can replace revolution. It's a tactic we use to teach the masses, including hope packages volunteers and recipients, that the state doesn't care about working class people. We build solidarity through struggle. Too often, the Panthers were situated within the domestic context only. That's important, but as Marxists, we stress the primacy of the international situation. The Panthers arose during the era of global revolution, where almost 3/5 of the world was living under socialist governments or anti-colonialist governments. They saw themselves as domestic manifestations of that global class struggle. And because they had the program, the support, and most of all, grouping of real organic leaders like Hampton, Huggins, and others, they were the greatest threat, according to FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. The FBI and CIA told the Justice Department to wipe them out by the end of the 1960s, and they engaged in assassinations, infiltrations, harassments, arrests, propaganda, and more to do just that. According to one Panther snitch, there were so many informants and provocateurs working on the feds that they frequently ratted out each other. The Chicago FBI office by itself had over 5,000 informants working to disrupt the Panthers and the Young Lords. By the end of the decade, the government killed at least 19 Panther leaders. Many fled to seek asylum in Cuba or the People's Republic of China. Huey P. Newton, arrested on trumped-up charges of murder and assault, sought asylum in Cuba between 1974 and 1977. When he returned, he was acquitted twice and had his charges dismissed. By then, the era of global revolution was nearing its end. The domestic counteroffensive by the U.S. ruling class was going international with a full-court press on the Soviet Union, and as the 1980s set in, the era of global counter-revolution was in full swing. There are a myriad of reasons the Panther legacy was so short. Some subjective and others objective, but what matters is how many rich lessons this short legacy holds for us today. Those of us still dedicated to making a revolution in the belly of the beast. Thank you, and all power to the people.
We're gonna have to do more than talk. We're gonna have to do more than listen. We're gonna even have to do more than learn. We're gonna have to start practicing, and that's very hard. We got to start learning, and you learn through practice. We got to start making mistakes, and you learn through making mistakes. We got to start getting out there with the people. And a lot of times we think we're better than the people. That's an insult, and that's criminal.
All right. Well, thank you, Comrade Dakota. That was excellent, very informative. I'm sure, all of our listeners, like myself, learned a lot from it, and we'll be taking those lessons with us as we continue the struggle on all fronts, as the Panthers did, indeed. So that's it for this episode of Naptown People's Radio. If you found today's discussion useful, the lesson useful, please, leave a comment, pass it along, listen for our next episode to drop. You can support us at support.naptownpeoplesradio.com, and you can support us also by shopping at the Indianapolis Liberation Center store. If you have a suggestion for the show, you can email our producer Dakota at producer@naptownpeoplesradio.com. And remember, the road ahead is long, but we walk it together. Study with your comrades, build with your community, and always remember, theory without action is paralysis, but action without theory is chaos. Once again, I'm your host, Derek Ford, here with my comrade and producer,
Dakota Fronterhouse.
Stay dangerous, stay disciplined, and stay in the struggle.
We trying to create a movement. We got a chance to do something in Indiana that brothers like myself been talking about for the last 40 years. When I first became political and we was organized behind the walls in the 80s and 90s, Some of the stuff that we doing now with the different programs and the different institutions that we have and things like the Indie Center is things that we used to talk about and dream about doing. And now we doing them. See what I'm saying? We doing it. And we got to keep that momentum going. And it's also generation. So as the next generation come up, you know what I'm saying? It's on y'all to take it to the next level and take it to the next stage.
Salute. Shout out to support.